I had a conversation with my mum and I just said to her, like, what are the things that you've done for yourself? And just like in talks of happiness, like what makes you happy? And she was like, seeing my kids happy makes me happy. Seeing like my husband happy makes me happy. And I said, okay, I said, but those are like external things based on other people, which can be quite subjective. What makes you happy? And we were just driving to Sainsbury's and she was really quiet. And I just said to her, don't you think that is quite profound that for women, there's all these titles that is thrown at us? I said, aside from you being my mum, aside from you being somebody's husband, aside from you being whatever your job role is, you for yourself as a woman, what do you know about yourself?
Welcome to Ethnically Speaking. I'm your host, Sophie Hannah, and I'm joined by my favorite co-host, Mona and Nushi Rose. Today, we are talking all about happiness, and I want to know, are women less happy now than they used to be due to the unrealistic expectations created by social media?
I would have to say that I do think women are unhappy due to the unrealistic expectations caused by social media. I wouldn't just say that it's limited to only women, but for now, I will just box it in for that. I think that there's a lot of comparison. I feel like there's a lot of unrealistic expectations put on women's shoulders. And I know for myself, I've had to take a lot of breaks from social media because I find myself getting into a frame of mind where I have very dangerous narratives going on in my head about myself, the way that I look, how far I am in my life in comparison to my friends, people who are the same age as me, people who are younger than me, people who are older than me, people who look like me, people who don't look like me. Like, the list is just absolutely endless. So I really do think that it has a serious effect on my happiness. And I'm inclined to believe throughout the conversations I've had with my friends, loads of other women as well.
That's crazy because as people know, we've been filming like remotely on the pandemic and we've only recently been able to see each other in the flesh. And my first thing is like, she's so stunning.
Oh,
she is so stunning.
Thank you.
And to think that we've gotten to a place where social media is literally making people feel like they're less than and you're right, in every aspect of our lives, it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you in the sense that like the comparisons, the expectations of what you should be like and what your life should be like, as we all know, I guess the issue is that there's a hypocrisy or like contradiction in the sense that we all know social media isn't real because we all use it. Like, we are the people that are putting not fake stuff up on there, but like it's a very curated version of our lives. And most of our lives are drudgery. I mean, not drudgery, but they're not sort of exciting, beautiful, like exquisite moments that you'd wish to share with everyone. You know, they're going to work, they're making dinner, they're putting the recycling out. But those aren't the things that we put up ourselves. And yet, like, we still expect people's projections to be, they still define our expectations of what our life should be. So like, in my view, you know, I was looking back at what is happiness, like what do studies show that happiness actually is and how does social media feed into those? And so like the longest running study on happiness, or like most comprehensive study, is the Grant study, which is like a 75-year-old study, the Harvard study, which kind of looked at this generation of post-war, interwar men who went to Harvard College and like what at the end of their lives or throughout their lives, what were the things that made them happy? How happy were they? And what were the factors that contributed to those? And the only determining factor of happiness was your relationships. So your romantic relationships, your friendships, your community, whatever it is, that those kind of things that is the only factor that has a proven impact on your happiness level. Now, social media, what is the issue there? Like, all your relationships are inauthentic. You're DMing someone, you're responding with an emoji, you're not properly engaging, or sending a like, a comment, maybe 3 fire emojis because someone looks good. Like, that's a really false way to interact. That's not building a true connection or an authentic relationship. That is just like maintaining some kind of like mutual liking relationship so that like they'll comment on your pics and you can both feel like briefly get that dopamine hit. It's not to do with the actual relationship. So I do agree. And I think it all kind of comes back to those things. Relationships are so broken on social media and perpetuated because we're so addicted to it. That is why like it just has completely reduced our happiness levels.
And I think social media has really taken things up a level because I don't think social media is the only contributor to this or the place where this all began. Because if we really think about it, everything that we've seen in the media, everything that has been sold to us is always like, your happiness is a touch away. That mascara, those lashes, that new dress, that new car, that new house, whatever it is, it's just around the corner. And we're always told that happiness is the next thing that we have, and we very much know what that happiness looks like. It's to be my slimmest weight. It's to be the most in shape. It's to have a big house, have a big car, have the perfect job. And now when we throw in social media over the past couple of decades, we are now seeing people who are constantly telling us, I have it all. I have it all. This happiness that we're all trying to probably go for it to some extent in some area of our life. And we're seeing people having all those things. And I think it just contributes to this cycle of saying that happiness is around the corner. And the whole point is that they tell us that so they can sell us things. If we felt like we were enough, if we felt like everything, you're just fine the way you are, people would literally not have a reason to keep buying and doing these things. And I definitely think that falls harder on women, because we're already constantly put into those circles anyway. But let me ask a question, guys. Like, what do you think you need to be happy?
One thing I need my mum to stop telling me to look at my age mates.
Yeah.
I don't know if your mum say this, but that is something that is constantly repeated in my culture, and it gets on my nerves. And now, because of social media, that's all I have to do is look at my age mates, because all of my age mates are just here, there, and I'm looking at what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So comparison is definitely the theft of happiness, I believe. Mm-hmm. I think for me, the conversations that I have with myself is whenever I feel that I am going into a dark place, because it's okay to not be happy. I think that this whole false toxic positivity 24/7, that's not normal. Like, you can't be in that state of mind all the time. And happiness is definitely a journey and not a destination. So when I feel unhappy, I just check into myself that it's okay to have a range of emotions, but it's only when it starts to fester and start to go over a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, then I'm like, okay, I'm in a dark place right now. I like to surround myself with a lot of spiritual teaching. So I will have like Stephen Furtick preaching in the background. I like to listen to him a lot. I'll pray a lot. Because I remember once, this is a weird analogy, I said to my auntie, I was like, I have such dry skin. Like, every single time I put cream on, it just disappears. And she's like, how many times do you cream your skin? I said, whenever I hop out the shower. And she's like, why don't you cream your skin whenever you need it? Like, don't just do it as a routine. So I've kind of adopted that. Whenever I feel like I need to pray or I need to have some sort of spiritual time to myself, do it whenever I need it. So if I need it on my lunch break, do it. If I need it on my way in the car, do it. I'm not just going to do it in routine. I'm used to praying in the morning, so I only pray in the morning. Sometimes my body is telling me something and I'm going to act on it every single time. So if that means I'm praying 6 times a day, or I need to read a book 6 times a day, or just find my inner self 7 times a day, that's what I'll do.
I feel like I don't pray, but I think what I need to be happy like changes depending on where I am in my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I do also believe that happiness is a journey. I think that, and I completely like subscribe to this idea that it's basically a money-making thing, right? It's completely like this idea that we're going to achieve happiness one day, rather than that happiness is something that you kind of have as a base level of contentment. Everybody feels unhappy sometimes. Everybody feels great sometimes. And the problem is, like, the way that happiness is marketed to us is as this kind of like almost like ecstatic, like dancing around madness, insanity. Like, it would be exhausting. It would be so exhausting if we were all like that all the time. Like, imagine a conversation right now. How would we, you know what I mean? It would just be too much. And so rather than like, it's almost like we're aspiring to something we don't actually want, because like that's how it's represented. It's not rooted in reality. So for me to be happy, like, I do think it does come back. I agree with that, the findings of that study. Like, personal relationships are really important to me. Even if, like, you know, sometimes when I'm feeling miserable, I have no desire to respond to anyone. I don't want to speak to them, but I know they're there. I know that if I chose to reach out to somebody, they would, well, fingers crossed, they would respond. And so that to me is like the thing I think that keeps me kind of content, happy.
Okay.
What about you?
I think that's really interesting, because I've been talking to a counselor recently, and something that she was saying to me was just like, okay, I want you to think about what makes you happy. Like, what makes you happy, so we can kind of write those down, so you kind of know if you are feeling a bit sad one day, what are the things that you can go to? So she was just like, come back next week, tell me the things that make you happy. And I literally was stumped. Like, I was sitting down like, what things make me happy? What things make me happy? And I remember she was like, ask the people in your life. So I asked my husband, like, when I'm down or sad, what makes me happy? And he was like, you like a cuddle, like you like to be held, and various things. And I guess for me, I'm now in the place and I'm like nearly 35, having to think outside of everything that is told that's going to make me happy. Outside of getting that promotion at work and getting my dream car and renovating my house, building a house. Those are the things that in my head are on my happiness list.
Yeah.
And if some of those things are like not right here or months away or some of those are years away, it's like, what right now makes me happy? And I wonder if I've been so out of tune because I've been listening to society so much that I can't pick up on those little things, like actually watching Dirty Dancing makes me happy. And, you know, buying a plant and watering it and seeing it grow makes me happy. It's not that at the moment.
Right.
Makes me happy. Like, and I wonder if we actually really clue into those little things. And for me, it's no. I'm realizing I have to work on that. So I don't know if that's like any other people, but I think it's a very important conversation to have because it's easy to get caught up in people telling us what makes us happy. And basically it's like 4 things that might take a lifetime to get. But I want to know, did you have something to say?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say like another way of like looking at that question, because I was also thinking when I was trying to figure out what makes me happy as well, but then I was like, what makes me unhappy? And like, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, like this is a way to figure out what makes me happy because I know what makes me unhappy. Like I know, like my main thing is like I hate feeling trapped. Like if I feel like I'm trapped in a job or I'm trapped in any kind of situation, not literally trapped, obviously that doesn't really happen so much, but then I feel trapped in circumstance and I feel like I have to do something radical, like disappear from the, like move country or like go away or whatever. Like those feelings, those really extreme things you have. And like that for me, I'm like, okay, how do I get out of that space? And I'm like, okay, I just chat to my friends, say I want to escape, I want to like move to Australia or whatever. I don't have no desire to move there, but whatever it might be, just get to, you know, like to quell those feelings. But anyway, that's my like psychological way of kind of like looking at those questions.
No, that makes sense.
I had a conversation with my mum and I just said to her, like, what are the things that you've done for yourself? And just like in talks of happiness, like what makes you happy? And she was like, seeing my kids happy makes me happy. Seeing like my husband happy makes me happy. And I said, okay, but those are like external things based on other people, which can be quite subjective. What makes you happy? And we were just driving to Sainsbury's and she was really quiet. And I just said to her, don't you think that is quite profound that for women, there's all these titles that is thrown at us? I said, aside from you being my mum, aside from you being somebody's husband, aside from you being whatever your job role is, you for yourself as a woman, what do you know about yourself? And she was really quiet. And I just thought to myself, we're taught so much to be on ball for everyone else. Like these are the signs that you need to know in your children to spot this and this, whether it's like poor mental health, eating disorders, whatever the case may be. This is the things that you should look out for in your partner. There's not that much conversations given to yourself. And sometimes for ethnic women, that could be quite a selfish thing to say. If you say to somebody, I'm feeling like this, is a bit like, oh, you're a bit idle. You've got a lot of time on your hands to be thinking about yourself. But if you don't actually know yourself and know what makes you happy, doesn't that mean that you're a bit broken? And then how are you expected to take care of someone else when you don't even know how to take care of yourself?
I think when I agree, I overstand with what you're saying. And I think when women do have so many hats on, the part that is about us can get pushed to the bottom between being a mother or a wife or a friend or a daughter or a sister or worker or all of these things. And it's kind of like, how well do I know myself? How well am I checking in myself? Because I think for men in general, them focusing on themselves isn't seen as selfish. It's kind of like, you're a man and to get to the next goal, you know, I need to know myself and I need to that. And I think for women, it is very, very important to just know that about ourselves. So I was wondering, when we were talking about social media, do you think that the effects of social media are dependent on age?
Yeah, definitely.
Why?
Well, okay, so because I guess, you know what I mean, like younger people. So again, there's this thing like the happiness curve, right? And so the happiness curve says that from the age of 18, you're just going to be increasingly unhappy the rest of your life until you get to 47.2.
Are you going to give us anything to hope for? Or are you just going to...
Guys, I mean, I'm almost 47.2.
Don't lie.
Joking. Yeah, no, I'm just increasingly unhappy. But basically, yeah. So like what this says, like, why, if that has been the case, and that's true across all societies, it doesn't matter whether they're rich, poor, West, like wherever they are in the world, this is the case. Everybody is increasingly unhappy in their entire lives until they reach almost 50. And so the fact that this exists, and like the fact that most social media users are younger, right? So I think like maybe we're like conflating those two. Like, you know, when we think about like cause and effect, is it social media that's making people happy? Well, people are always unhappy. It's just that they didn't have a space to communicate it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't visible before. And now we have a space where we can communicate our feelings all the time. I can upload, you know, if I'm feeling miserable, I can literally just upload on my story instantly. I get a load of people responding to me. And so we're aware of how we're feeling and each other we're feeling now. Is it just we have the platform? And so I kind of subscribe to that because it's not like, I guess it's not new. Like in any generation that people like in inverted commas like find themselves, you know, in early adulthood, having kids, like all those different things, like completely, there's so many life-changing moments up to 7.2. And then I kind of feel that at that point, you're probably established or your life is kind of, it's as it probably will be for the rest of, in a sense, the rest of your life. And so I do kind of agree with that idea that, yeah, it is kind of conditioned by age to an extent, the way that social media impacts our happiness or unhappiness. It's not really, or rather it's not necessarily to do with the influence of social media itself.
See, I agree and I disagree because I do think that when you're in that age bracket of being an impressionable age, there's loads of things that would sway you more so than if you were outside that age bracket. However, that being said, the older that I get, I'm like, same shit, different day. Like, I thought that when I was 21...
Does it make you more happy?
I wouldn't say that it makes me more unhappy, but there's no magical number. So I wouldn't say that if I was 18 years old and I was looking at a post of a girl who looked absolutely amazing and I was judging myself, at 18, I'd feel worse off than I would at 25 because I feel like I've gotten to a place of acceptance. No, not necessarily, because I think that everybody has insecurities and it's how those insecurities play on you. And whatever you're looking at, they gauge. So all three of us could look at an image and I might think, God, look at her waist, even though to someone else, I might have a really small waist. You might think, oh my God, look at her nose, even though to someone you might have a very straight nose. Do you know what I mean? All of our insecurities are different. So we could look at this one image and be in three completely different stages of our age and it still have an effect on us. This idea that the older that you get is the more secure you get in yourself. When you get to those ages and you might not feel secure, you're caught in a catch-22 because everyone's told you that when you get to this age, you're going to feel like this. So if you're now thinking, well, why am I crumbling at something that is arguably for 18-year-olds to feel some type of way about and not me? Am I not mature enough? Am I not comfortable in myself? You don't get older and these insecurities just eradicate. It's something that you work on. And if you don't work on it, they can either increase or they can stay stagnant or you can suppress them and they actually haven't gotten anywhere. And there will be things that start to rear their heads up in different places. Because I was talking to my mum and she was talking about her stomach and saying that she wanted to get liposuction. And I was like, what? Never heard my mum say anything about this before. And I looked at her and I just kind of thought, but at the end of the day, like, you are a woman. You do have insecurities. How selfish is it of me to think that because you're a mum and because you are arguably my role model, you would never feel like that? Who am I to say that? Have I gone off on a tangent or do you understand?
No, you haven't, because I feel it's interesting because I think before you said that, I was just thinking what Nushi was saying. I was thinking, I can understand why people say at 50 they're more accepting because as I've gotten older, there definitely is wisdom in age. There's definitely something about having more wisdom, having more experience and seeing through some of the BS that I wasn't able to when I was younger. Like certain things you're like, yeah, I wouldn't have made that decision. You can see people making decisions like, probably not the best decision, but they're going to have to learn through it. I learned through my decision. So as you get older, I think certain things, you're just like, I'm not going to fuss about that anymore because some things I have to let go. But I think also I agree because when we're talking about the original question about unrealistic expectations, it doesn't stop. Like my mum is, I can't even say what age is she in. She will kill me.
Very young.
Yes, very young.
Younger than you.
But older.
All of us.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah.
So my mum, and she still will think about the way that she looks and her size and this and that. And every woman does. And I thought like, well, when I'm that age, I just won't even care. But the point is there is no age that a woman isn't supposed to be her youngest looking, her thinnest, her most attractive. It doesn't stop for women. We don't get to age out of those expectations, and you see as you get older and older and older. And I think I was saying to these guys like beforehand, like in the prep time, like I went out with my niece yesterday, and my niece is 16 and she is coming to her woman body already. That happens in my family. The puberty starts early. She's a very attractive young girl, young woman now. And when I'm seeing grown men looking at her, I'm just like, wow, like the guys that are looking at her, some of them are my age, some of them are younger, but I'm just like, the way that time just moves on, like I used to be that girl. And now I am the woman that is looking older. So I'm out of that kind of look for certain guys. And now my niece is hopping into it. Even though she's young, it doesn't matter because I was 16 getting looks from grown ass men. So, and seeing that, and as for a woman, we really are told that we get less attractive the older we get.
Yeah.
And that the height of beauty is probably in your 20s for women. And that's the age you need to be. And then you see women constantly trying to get back to that stage of that beauty. And I think personally, that's where the liposuction comes in, the breast augmentation comes in, all these other stuff. It's like, I'm trying to get back to my younger self. And I think that's what makes me so unhappy about unrealistic expectations put on women, put on myself, because I feel it too 100%. For me, it's probably about size and weight, and just this idea of you need to get back to a time. I'm like, but what do I do when my body doesn't want to? But then social media and everything else is telling me it is attainable if you work hard enough, and tutus, Kim Kardashian is drinking a juice for breakfast to maintain. So there's a lot of unrealistic expectations out there. But I want to know, do you think it's possible to be happy all the time?
No, absolutely not. I don't think it is possible to be happy all the time. As I said earlier, I feel like happiness is a journey and not a destination. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to be happy all the time, because I think that everything is about rhythm. It comes and it goes, it ebbs and it flows. And I think it's important to have a realistic understanding of what it is you're going through and what it is that you want. I think to be happy all the time, how is that even feasible? Because even if I had the best life and I had as much money as I wanted and I had the husband of my dreams or the wife of my dreams and however many kids, whatever the case is, if I had a Bentley outside and I was walking to that Bentley and I really hit my funny bone, that's going to flipping hurt. And I'm not going to be happy at that point in time. That's, do you know what I mean? And I'm the type of person where the tiniest of things really niggle at me for a long time. So I'd be still driving in that Bentley cursing like, that flipping hurt for like an hour. The comfort of that Bentley is not going to get my mind off. I just bumped my arm. And that's just how it goes. And I use that such a comical example, because happiness isn't just, I have no money, I don't look like the way that I want. Happiness could be, I've walked into Costa, I've bought the coffee that I want, I'm living life, I've walked out and I've spilt scorching hot coffee on me. I'm not happy at that point in time. So I just think that people look at it and they expand it too much and they make it too overcomplicated. So to answer your question, no, I don't think it is possible or it's healthy to be happy all the time.
Yeah, I'm so with you. I think it just comes back to like, we just need to like talk about like how we define happiness. You know what I mean? Like what is happiness? Like in my view, I think the way that we really need to think about it, rather than happiness, is quality of life. What is quality of life? In my view, quality of life actually is like at this really like basis level, just freedom from fear and the ability to eat every day and the ability like having shelter and all those kind of really basic, having your basic needs met is a privilege that a lot of people obviously in this world don't have. So that is a much stronger measure of kind of quality of life, or is the measure of quality of life that we should be aspiring to and grateful for, rather than happiness, which is a really nebulous term that, as we were saying, like doesn't really make sense anyway, because the way it's represented is so false. Like it's a marketing ploy rather than like an actual human experience, unless we're all like at a rave maybe. But like the truth is like happiness doesn't exist in those terms, and I think it's just redefining what it actually means, like expectations of happiness, and also that recognition that social media, which is something, we were talking earlier about how many hours we spend on our phones. Like, you know what I mean? It's like we were congratulating someone for only spending 4 hours a day on their phone. The tiny screen, guys. Apart from the issues like with your later like blindness and so on, like the fact is we're all so addicted to it. It affects us even when we recognize that it's fake. And that is how that is how we sort of calibrate or like define our own standards for how we should be living, and our happiness and our sadness and our weekends and our body types and whatever. And so all these things come together. And I think if we just take like a step back and think, okay, quality of life over happiness. This is how I think actually makes things a lot easier, and it inspires gratitude in ourselves.
And I think that's something that I really wanted to say when we talked about this in terms of happiness. Like, I think for me, there are things now that I'm just reaching more for as I'm getting older, which is contentment, gratefulness, because joy, like things that aren't dependent on situations. Because I think happiness, the way that I see happiness is very much so. And I read this thing and it was talking about like your basal level for happiness. And they're like, basically everyone has a basal level for happiness, very steady. And then we have spikes. So you get that new car, there's a spike of happiness and you feel like I am always going to be happy because I finally got this car that I wanted. And then it comes back down to your normal basal level of happiness. And I think we're told that those spikes are, and the high of the spike is what we need to be aiming for. And they're saying it doesn't actually exist because you will always fall back to a basal level of happiness. So if you're constantly chasing after the spikes in life, you're constantly going to be let down. And I think that's why for me, I'm just like, I want to learn contentment and joy and gratefulness so that I'm just like, things aren't great. Do you know what? I'm still content because things are okay and I can choose to enjoy where I'm at now, or things aren't good, or I have everything I want and I'm still content. And I don't think those ideas of satisfaction and being enough or having enough is really shopped to us nowadays. So I don't know, guys. But a question that I had for you is, do you think then, with everything that we said about social media, that we just need to ditch it?
No, because I think that there are so many people who are doing amazing due to social media.
Okay.
Whether it's like business ventures and using social media, becoming like influencers, whatever the case is. I don't think that ditching social media is it's not going to be the cure, that's for sure. I don't think there ever will be a cure. I think it's just something that people need to be able to understand how to deal with. So no, I don't think that ditching social media, I think it might help in certain situations, but I don't think that it will be the cure.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think social media like democratizes the information, our ability to create and consume information that we want. So rather than like a few newspapers or websites, whatever it might be, like controlling the information we consume, it allows us to be those creators. And like hence the rise of influencers, or being able to build your own business or digital marketing or whatever. But I think the issue is less like social media itself and more the way that we choose to consume it, you know, because even if you think of like a really basic level, like algorithms and the fact that whatever we look at or speak about on our phones listening is then shown to us, you know, we can curate just by changing our habits, what we see and what is presented to us, and the way that we feel after we kind of put down our phones and lock them in a room to try and get to sleep or whatever it might be, you know what I mean? So I don't think it's about the platform itself, it's how we use it and being cognizant of how it's impacting us.
I definitely agree with you. I think for me it's about temperance, because I've heard people talking about giving up social media. It's impossible. Like, it is in our world. It is here to stay. So I think it's about how do we use it? How do we use it responsibly? And because it came about so quickly, no one knew that it was going to spawn into this thing that would take over or redefine the world that we live in. And I think what you were talking about in terms of the Harvard study is just so key in terms of talking about ditching it. It's about realizing that this tool, this place, as in social media, the place where whatever your drug of habit is with social media, we all have one. Mine is Instagram. But whatever your drug of choice is with social media, like, this thing is not really getting you deeper relationships. Like, it does connect us, let's be real, but it's not that depth of relationship that brings happiness. It's not just relationships. It's like being in deep relationship where you know somebody and they know you, and you can open up your heart and your soul and your mind to them. Those are the things that give us life. And I think that was the thing that made it sad about the Harvard study, was that people were willing to trade on the relationships for all these other things that they thought were going to make them happy, only to realize that it wasn't that. And I don't understand how every generation we just fall into the same gap. And then we read the studies that say relationships are the things that make happy. You're like, yeah, of course it is. Of course, when I'm with my loved ones, I do feel the most happy. But then we get caught up in the rat race again. So do you think there is something that can help us take our mind out of that kind of rat race and chasing after their happiness? Like, how do we not just hear it, but make it a part of our lives?
I think that some of the vocabulary that you've used is very key. So talking about being content, talking about like being enough. I think that when people think about the word happiness, I do think that is used a lot. And I don't necessarily think that sometimes it's the best fitting emotion or word to go after. When I think about other emotions that are just as important, like you said about being content, that is something that you should be kind of gearing towards. I just think that running after happiness 24/7 sounds to me is going to make you unhappy.
Sounds tiring.
Do you know what I mean? It sounds tiring. Like, so just welcoming other emotions, opening your mind, reading a book, getting a bit more literate about internal work, I think is something that would perhaps get you closer to being happy, even though I don't want to necessarily use that word. But yeah, I just think opening up your mind a bit, and you know, like when people say, if you go looking for a relationship, that's the last thing you're going to find.
Yeah.
If it sounds crazy, because I'm not saying don't do any work, but if you go looking for happiness, I don't think it's what you're going to find. Happiness is just a state that you're trying to get to, but you are the thing that is permanent. So being okay in yourself and understanding what is your fixation on this happiness. What do you like? Like you said, what your counselor said to you, what do you like? What don't you like? Just being more self-aware, I think perhaps could get you to a place where other emotions are welcome to the table and you'd be okay regardless of what state you're in.
Okay. All right. So I really love talking about happiness with you guys because, like I said, this is the place I'm trying to get to in my life right now. But guys, thank you for watching and listening to Ethnically Speaking. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Take care and we'll see you soon.